Hello, friends, and welcome, YouTube. We're recording this live on Twitch, which I don't usually do, but here we are. It's going to be a tier list for the best hard supports, and then as I go through them, chat can ask questions, we can address them, and we'll include the good questions in the video as well. This may not be as organized as usual, but that's fine. Let's give it a go. I've got the whole tier list here, so you guys don't have to skip through the video to find out S through D tier. Maybe that's worth a like if you enjoy that, because it hurts the YouTube algorithm from the watch time, so maybe we can balance that out. Just a thought. Anyways, let's get into it. S tier. So Undying, super good. Just the numbers in general are really strong, and he is a lane winner, which I guess we should actually describe the meta first. I already got out of order. Hey guys, Zach from the future here. I didn't do a great job describing the meta, so we're going to add it in here. Right now, a lot of hard supports want to be strong laners who can then get active. So some popular carries right now are Morphling, Slark, Medusa, Bloodseeker, some like Naga, Faceless Void, stuff like that in your pubs. You know, probably see some Sniper, Jug, PA, Drow. Off laners, you got things like LC, Timber, Broodmother, Darkseer, Tide, Beastmaster, stuff like that. So many of these supports you'll see are able to either play aggressively and get kills, which some of these carries really want, and into these offlane matchups they are good against. Many strength offlaners are popular right now, melee heroes, so heroes like Undying wreck them, Venomancer slows them, kites them, Techies and Pugna massively outrange them, just whittle them down. For your carries, right, if they aren't strong carries that want to get kills, they are like heavy farmers that want to scale into the mid to late game. So you kind of just, hopefully you give them at least like an even lane, if not a good lane, against some of the popular offlaners and strong 4 supports. So you yourself are a strong hard support to kind of counter that. Now, once you finish your laning stage, you want to go get active. You're probably building an item like Solar Crest, Pavis, Drums, Force Glimmer, Arcane Boots into maybe Guardian Greaves. There's a lot, but those are kind of like the popular support items right now. So if you have some natural synergy with that, that's great. And then you go hopefully play with like an active mid or off laner and the other 4 support, and you want to go like join all these small objectives around the map. So many of these heroes are not too long of a cooldown, even their ultimates. Those may be a little longer, but their regular spells and maybe even their ultimates tend to be lower cooldown, so you can go from like, Tower to Power Rune to Wisdom Rune to Tormentor, Roche, right? There's all these little things, and kills are so big, so you either want to be good at getting kills or good at saving your allies.
Yes, that is what you need to do.
Wah, wah, we are helpless babies. We want to eat baby carries. No, drat. Actually, this one won't stop crying. You can have it. Yay. Give me a tango.
With that out of the way, Undying, very strong right now. Decay is just really good. Max Decay has kind of been the most popular build. It gives you a lot of presence in these group fights. When everyone tries to like group up, you're decaying like 3-4 people at once, making you very strong, making them weak. When there's not fights happening, you can decay creep waves, creep camps, and it does the double damage now against creeps. So you have some farming potential that you never had before. Item-wise, you just buy whatever your team needs. You have very flexible itemization, though anything that gives you mana and helps you tank up helps a lot, so that you can kind of be a little bit more on the front line. You don't want to die straight away, but you do kind of want to be like in the heat of things, so anything with armor, magic resist, all great. Tombstone, strong for these fights, and then good for Roshan as well. You can use the Tombstone to tank Roche, or the zombies will tank Roche, and then your ult also opens up Roshan, which Roshan is harder than it was in the past, so now you help with all that. Plus, your Shard now makes you a save hero, which is kind of weird. So all that combined just makes Undying a really good hero. Chat, do we have any Undying questions? How many mangoes do we buy? That's a good question. Yeah, I would buy as many as your team will allow you to. At least like 1 or 2 is good. If someone else wants mangoes, you can let them buy it. If no one else is buying mangoes, like 4 mangoes is totally fine. Or maybe buy like 1 or 2 to start, and then be ready to buy the next 2 if there's other things you want, like a stick or sentries, stuff like that. But yeah, you want to go ham on the mangoes and then try to secure the lotuses off of that. That's like a free mango. Buy more mangoes. Blood grenade, really good. Tombstone, blood grenade combo, easy kills. There's a video on this actually of us taking a look at Insania playing it, so you guys can check it out there. Did you solve the big mana issue in lane? Yeah, mangoes, clarities. If you're building a fast like Sage's Mask, a fast Solar Crest, you can get the Sage's Mask. It's really just a balance. You have to balance out your decay spam. with your tombstone and hopefully get a kill when you finally commit it. And that extra gold will help you. If you like die for a kill, which is totally fine for Undying, he can do that. Once you die, you kind of reset your whatever your resources, so then you're good on that front. But yeah, if you like spam out decay too much and you don't get to a point where you can like actually tombstone kill, then it can be a little awkward. But that's where clarity helps. What level do you take heal? Situationally, if you need the heal, you can grab it earlier. Otherwise, going like decay, tombstone, decay has been a bit more common, and then you take heal at like level 4. Sometimes it's skipped if it's a really good tombstone game, but I'd say like the heal at level 4 is pretty safe. But max the other skills first, typically. Not set in stone, but yeah, the others are just pretty good right now. Undying is the only melee in S rank. There's a lot of popular melee cores. Or maybe it's the other way. There's a lot of ranged popular supports, so then the cores tend to be melee. I don't know what comes first, but you typically don't want 2 melees in a lane. 2 ranged heroes is also not the best, but actually I find a little easier to work with than double melee. So that might be partly why. Like if more ranged heroes were popular, then maybe more melee supports would be popular. Get kited so easily. Well, that's true. Undying does prefer to play against melee heroes without escapes. So that side kind of hurts. But even ranged heroes struggle to like really push into Undying. So even when you're against double ranged, depending on who your core is, you can at least secure the lane or possibly still get kills. When they use their escapes and then your core has like a stun or something, it's still doable. Undying has very few matchups right now that are like the worst, but double range that are like mobile and fast are probably some of his worst matchups. Techies really strong. The Q harass, the long range with all the universal stats, just lots of poke. Very flexible itemization to buy whatever his team needs. The stun on his E, very strong. I kind of talked about him in the position 4 tier list with 5 up, so I won't repeat myself too much here. But for all the reasons Techies is a good 4, he is a good 5 as well. He is one of the heroes who it really feels fine to play him in 4 or 5. Other heroes, it's like you can do the other role, but it's not your best. Techies, I don't really care. I think 4 or 5 is good, though maybe 4 is a little better. I don't know. But just the massive harass and kill potential off of Q and E, the utility off of his W with the disarm, and then the ult for vision, magic resistance shredding, the farming potential, the tower damage. It just feels like Techies is a very safe pick to combo with anything. If you want to like a very safe lane, then you're just gonna like harass a ton. If you want to actually go for kills, then he works as well, right? So I don't know, like, Techies forever. Mana regen versus blast damage. What do you pick on the talent? That's for the 15, right? I would go for the blast off damage. By level 15, you typically have 1 or 2 items, such as like Arcane Boots Pavis, Arcane Boots Solar Crest, and that combo is kind of enough mana. If you're like spamming Proximity Mines off cooldown, then yeah, you will run out of mana. But like a clarity here and there, maybe a lucky neutral item, it tends to cover your mana needs, I feel like. And so blast off damage to like, 700 blast off damage, pretty insane. And try to just like pick up major kills, I think is worth more. Next is Venomancer. He is kind of like a ranged Undying. He is just really strong in the laning stage with the Poison Sting harass, plus the Venomous Gale, which is a really strong slow. You can get your kills denied, which is a little sad, but they're still dead, so you still get like the lane control at least. If they have Dispels, that's also sad, and Dispels are a little bit popular, and I think that's why Venomancer has dropped off. In the pro scene, you don't see him so much, but in the pub scene, I think he's still really good, and that's why he's S tier for me to balance it out between pro and pubs. But the pro scene actually does not play him very much. The others, like Plague Wards, if you choose to max this first, if you max Poison Sting, it's more like kill potential. Plague Wards, level 1, can apply this. I talked about this in the guide, so I won't repeat too much here. I'll link that guide. But if you choose to max Plague Wards, and that is a lot of control to defend a lane you don't want to play with your team or to push aggressively. But if you can push aggressively, I'd probably go Poison Sting first for the kills. And then the ult being very powerful. And then, again, flexible itemization to do whatever. So for a similar reason to Techies, I think Venomancer is a more... maybe situational to Techies. Like Techies just feels better in more cases, and I think that's why in the pro scene you go Techies, and like Techies are Undying instead of Venomancer. But in the pub scene, I don't think it matters as much. You get to play what you like, and I like Venomancer a little more, so I play Venomancer. S tier might be too high for Veno. That is fair. I think definitely the higher up you go, there's more ways to deal with Venomancer. You could probably move him down. As soon as enemies can stand their ground against Gale, I feel like that's a fair take, but also at that point, you've hopefully done your job as like a position 5. Like, you're supposed to have a very strong early game combined with like blood grenades and your slows. And that's why certain matchups are really bad. Like when they have a dispel or when they outrange you, it sucks. That's kind of why like Techies is good, because Techies can beat Venomancer in the lane. So in that sense, you know what? I think it is fair if you want to move like Venomancer down. But in a lot of pub games, I still think it's okay. There's like tons of really popular melee heroes right now for the core roles that Venomancer just kind of makes their life miserable, and you can like have a very strong lane, and from there you will inevitably drop off in the like mid to late game. But like from laning to mid, I think if it's a decent looking Venomancer game, you're going to be in a good spot. If it's a bad Venomancer game, I don't know. Then it kind of sucks. But I guess that applies to like any support that's supposed to be strong. Is there a good guide? Heck yeah, there is. It'll be linked. It's better to max something first rather than go in between. For Venomancer, I would go Q, W, W, and then if you really want kills, get another point in Venomous Gale before maxing Poison Sting, then max Plague Wards. But typically Q, W, W, 1 point in E, and then either maxing E if you want to like hold a lane more and like be defensive, then more Plague Wards is better. And if you're having a really good lane and you can go for a lot of kills, then max Poison Sting is better, and then go back for Plague Wards. So like W and E will be maxed before Q in pretty much every game. S tier heroes tend to lack reliable stuns. That does happen to be the case right now. In pub games, that is kind of one of the biggest weaknesses. But the 5 role is not usually like responsible for stuns as much. Like if you look at the position 4s that are popular, many of them bring stuns, like Techies, Rubik, Spirit Breaker. And if you go down like the A tier, like stuff like these. Also, like popular off lanes carries, or off lanes and mids tend to be active, especially at the higher levels. So the 5 does not need to be stun heavy as much. But it depends on the meta. Some metas, it is better to have stuns. And right now, this is kind of like a kill heavy meta. So in that sense, having stuns is not bad. But you kind of see like how they all contribute to kills as well. You know, really powerful lanes and Tombstone to get kills. The new Caress and the stun for kills. Powerful slows and damage for kills. Some damage himself, but more like enabling his teammates to do the damage, right? Kind of skipping ahead to Pugna, but I don't know, just maybe number-wise, like maybe some of the stun heroes, if they had better numbers, maybe they'd be at the S tier, but as it so happens right now, like to me, these are like the S and A tier heroes, and even though they don't have stuns, they all have like their ways to contribute to like a powerful early game. Then the final S tier is Pugna. Pugna is super annoying in lane, just like pokes a lot, runs around really fast, low cooldown nuke. So all of those make his laning stage pretty consistent, and then once you get your ultimate, you just enable other people by reverse draining them. I don't know what it's properly called, but you're you know, spitting out on them, and you heal them, and then once they're fully healed, you give them mana. So this just increases everyone's tempo. All your active core heroes, probably the mid and the off lane, right? You just keep them going. They never have to stop, and you'll regen. Like either if you get Tranquil Boots, you will regen your health that way, and you'll probably need something to help with mana, maybe a neutral item, maybe some clarity, stuff like that. But more commonly, you get Arcane Boots, which will help with your mana, so you can use mana and health to heal up an ally, and then you're low, so then you drain a creep, so you're back to full health, so that just uses mana, and you pop your Arcane Boots, pop an Arcane Ring, something like that, you know, and then you're good to go. So Arcane Boots more popular, especially because you can then Arcane Boots around your allies so that you don't need to drain them as long because you're giving them some mana that way as well, and so that just helps with the mass tempo. And then items from there, just like whatever that helps your team. But Glimmer Cape really popular because then you cover your ground on physical damage and magic damage, as well as kind of the drain from you requires health, but Glimmer Cape will actually like, protect you a little bit from it. So it kind of like synergizes really well. You can also use Glimmer Cape while using drain. So if you're trying to save someone, you can be healing them plus Decrepify, Glimmer Cape them to protect them as much as possible. So that is a super common build up. Yeah, that's kind of Pugna. If you can be really active, that's the best case. If you want to be like damage Pugna, then that's not as good. This is harder to play in pub games, to be honest. Pugna very much S tier at the pro scene and the higher level pubs. The lower you go, the more it moves to damage Pugna, which I think is not as popular. Even though you can still do some healing as damage Pugna, I would move him down to like some, I don't know, B tier if you're playing Pugna that way. But if you can heal people, then it's good to go. What do you even do versus Pugna? Very low CD, low mana cost. Yeah, I agree. He's very annoying. Silences and stuns are very powerful versus Pugna because they cancel his channel. So that's one thing you can do. What else? He's squishy. Like if you can actually get on top of him and kill him, which kind of comes back to stuns and silences, then that is good. You kind of have to get to him though. Like if you are focusing his target that he is healing and boosting up with his items while he just sits in the back, then that's kind of exactly what is want. You kind of need the gap closers to get on Pugna, silence him or stun him so that he can't just like decrepify, protect himself. And so frequently that's not like a support's job depending on who you're playing. Sometimes it is maybe, but a lot of times like mid heroes who are active want to jump Pugna to kill him. It's the same like if you play against Dazzle, Oracle, Io, those type of heroes, right? You don't want to kill the target they're saving. You need to kill the saver. And that's kind of why he's like good in pub games as well, because many players don't properly prioritize the save hero. For the others, if you're not someone who jumps, not someone who has silence or stuns, Force Staff is very good to break the drain on your team if he's using it aggressively, and if he's using it defensively, sometimes he can still break the drain by like Force Staffing his teammate far forward, things like that. He will eventually get low, so you kind of keep an eye on that, and then like nuke him when he's like done his job saving his allies, stuff like that. But if it feels frustrating in a lot of matchups, it should be, because that's why he's an S tier hero. Talking about the first 3 minutes of the game, in that case, tangos and like ringer protection potentially. He's gonna run around and poke a lot, and if you're not a long range hero, then there's probably not that much you can do about it. So you're just gonna have to like regen through it and try to like keep the equilibrium in a good spot where he's going to have a harder time like running around and harassing. But sometimes that's like all you can do. Like Enchantress and Pugna as a support, like you just tank the damage for your core, or you try to do more damage to the enemy core, like one or the other. So depending on what hero you play, you can take your pick. Maybe you're a high damage dealer, you go for that. But if you aren't, then you're like, hit me and I'm gonna tango up and like buy a salve and all that and make you waste your time on me and just like get through this laning stage. Okay, for A tier, honestly, if you're good at these heroes, I mean, they could be S tier as well. You'll notice a trend of like strong laners here. So like Enchantress, Silencer, Lich, Batrider, all very strong laners. Rubik maybe next strongest. Oracle can be. Crystal Maiden, depending on the matchups, can be pretty good. Those are the ideal cases. In weak lanes, though, she'll still provide like the aura to like have a fast tempo. I'd say Disruptor's probably the weakest laner nowadays, but if the game is going well, then Glimpse is incredible, and that's kind of why he's up here. But I think in pub games, it's harder to play Disruptor well because you need like strong core heroes, and you need people to play with so that Glimpse can do something. And if that's not the case, it like feels terrible to be Disruptor when behind. I'd say these other heroes are a little easier to play from behind, but not that that's ever your plan really. But if you are, it's doable. Disruptor feels really sad. So to me, out of these heroes, he's like the hardest one to play in pubs, depending on your bracket. The rest though, they all have their place. Like Enchantress, very strong laner, very high tempo. Maybe another hero that's like better at higher brackets, because using creeps to then like push towers and do stuff like that, right? That only kind of happens in the pro scene. In the pub scene, it's like, where's my Enchantress? I'm losing the lane now. Like I'm all alone. It's like, oh my god, But I don't know. It still works, right? If you're still a good Enchantress, you'll make it work. Silencer, just very annoying laning stage, and then your ult wins a lot of team fights. Plus, you're stealing intelligence the whole time, and that's pretty cool. So that's tons of fun. Lich, strong ult. He's good against Techies because you can interrupt the blast off with your fear. So a lot of people pick Lich against Techies in the pro scene. Batrider can do it as well, but it's a lot harder because it's not instant to throw out your W. Batrider's been pretty popular. He actually has a low pub win rate. I think he's a difficult hero to balance like supporting playing the lane and then like greedy farm, and that's something I'm not that great at either, to be honest. But I think that's why in the pub scene his win rate's not that high, but the higher up you go, like people are really good with him. The W displaces you, it slows you, it does damage. The Firefly is really powerful right now because it does straight up DPS. Instead of like it used to do less damage and you had to like napalm them a lot. Now you don't need to do that. Now you can just like run people down with a blood grenade. You can between like 2-3 camps to like farm really fast. So Batrider just feels really strong right now if you know what you're doing. Oracle, I think, besides Pugna and kind of Undying, is probably the next best save hero. Dispels are really good right now. That's also part of Enchantress's strength. There's a lot of things that can be dispelled, like Pavis, Glimmer, Solar Crest, along with all the buffs, such as like Lich Armor, Venomous Gale, Decrepify, things like that. So I think that's why Oracle feels pretty good. And then in pub games, like people aren't properly prioritizing killing Oracles, and you just get to sit in the back, do all that stuff. He got some buffs in 7.33, so like all his double-edged spells no longer such a pain. So all of those combined, along with the shard being really good, I think makes Oracle like an A tier. Crystal Maiden, she's not really different from the past tier list. I don't want to talk too much about her, but like, pretty solid laning stage, and then you got the aura for the team. So, then we talked about him with the glimpse. Rubik, same reason as before in previous patches. He's not as popular as a 5 anymore, but it's kind of all the same stuff. Like, just imagine being Rubik, hitting a fast 6, and then look at the spells you get to steal from the other A tier, S tier heroes. There's a lot of good stuff here. And then if you look at like the position 4 tier list we made before, again, lots of like good stuff to steal here. That's not even like talking about the different core heroes. So Rubik as a 5, I don't know, it still works. It feels less strong than it used to, and I don't fully know why. I can't exactly tell you why it seems to have dropped off, but I do think it's still playable, and then he's good. He's in a good spot from there. Against LC, I think it kind of depends on how you want to play it. So you said besides Undying, but yeah, obviously Undying would be a strong laner, and if that's how you want to approach it, then other strong laners against LC can work. People who have spells that don't need to be, like, Venomous Gale is unfortunate because it can be dispelled, right? But you still have, like, your passive, so that kind of works. But something like Techies, where you can, like, throw the Q and she can't really dispel that. Something like Impetus from Enchantress and she can't dispel that. Frostblast, I'd say all of those are good. Or you can kind of plan for the post laning stage of LC. Like, she's going to want to duel people, and if she can't get kills, then she's going to be really sad, especially in a pub game. So Frost Shield from Lich can be really good. Decrepify, Oracle saves, and the disarm. I think these are all like pretty reasonable responses. If you know she's coming and you want to play those heroes, I think, yeah, all that works. Is it possible to hit the sticky bomb before it latches? No. An ench itemization. See a lot of pike ags, even in high level games. Oh, the ag's terrible. I think it's a pub build, which actually you sometimes see in the pro scene as well. It's one of the benefits of Enchantress, right? She has like this crazy scaling potential with Impetus right click. So I think Hurricane Pike alone is already really strong, but I don't know. I'm kind of on the same page as you, where it's like, how good can Sproink be? But the one time we tried it, it did feel pretty good, I gotta say. And it does seem to work when I see it in my games, because it's like, it's multiple targets being hit by a long-range Impetus. It is like actually tons of damage and some farming speed when you're like not in team fights. So I don't know. Like I've seen it do work, even though it doesn't sound like, I don't know, like 4,000 gold for it, but I don't know. It does seem to be okay. Orchid. The issue with Orchid, it might still be good, right? But let's say you get Hurricane Pike first and you're playing position 5, right? That means this Orchid's probably not finishing till like, let's say like 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes, depending how good of a game you're having. And then that feels like a little late. People have dispels.
You really dislike me. You put all my heroes in B tier or less, so I went to learn Rubik and Ench due to your last stream. Then you demote them too.
What? They're still up here. They're still here. What can you do? Some of my favorite heroes are here too. It's just the way it goes. That's all the S and A tier heroes. From there, I don't know if you guys want to talk about anything specifically, but I mean, from B, like, I think they're fine. Some of these are, like, more pub heroes than pro scene. So, like, Warlock, Omni, AA, they all have really good pub win rates, but you don't see them all that often in the pro scene. And I think it's just because, you know, the further down the MMR you go, the more you deviate from, like, high active early gameplay where you want strong laners, active heroes, and you get into, like, the game's going to 40, 50 minutes, so who's going to scale really well and who drags the game out, or who just doesn't get properly punished by pub play, like, you know, the dispels and the targeting Omni Knight, the same as, like, other save heroes, right? So, if you like those heroes, they're good in the pub scene. Shadow Demon, I think, is a little sleeper, could be better as people play him more and understand him more. I think he's actually pretty good. His ultimate, very strong against like this, all these abilities that can be dispelled. ET seems to be on the rise. Enigma, I actually don't know where to put Enigma because it's only recently come up that people are playing Enigma support, and I started to try it. I am not like fully, fully figured it out quite yet, but he might go up. Tons of pros are trying him, so maybe he should go higher. I think in the pub scene, and actually the last game we just played, right, we were getting flamed for playing him because it's weird and it's not the strongest laner. So that's the danger in a pub scene, so be careful of that, but Black Hole is pretty good, right? So you always have that later on. Why is ET so low? To be honest, he could be higher. I just don't know. I don't play ET very much myself. I have seen him in some of my pub games and some of the pro scene games, and he looks like pretty good. I just don't have enough data on it, right? There's not a perfect tier list. Heroes can move up and down. But yeah, ET, I think, could potentially be moving up, especially near the TI. He tends to make a comeback near TI. If he gets one more buff, I think he's definitely moving up to like A, S tier. Bane, I think Bane's laning stage is a little more awkward than it used to be, but if you get through the laning stage, Enfeeble is super annoying, and then Nightmare saves are always a high skill thing you can do. So I think he's pretty solid. I've seen him in a decent amount of my games. But again, he's another hero that, like, if you have dispels and silences, then it kind of feels bad. And if you imagine Bane versus like several of these heroes, it's just like it's hard to get a grip off, or it gets stolen, or you try to like nightmare people and they have like dispels, stuff like that. So I think that's why he's like a little lower, but definitely in pubs, I think it's fine. He works. Warlock slow skilled first. I probably wouldn't take it level 1. I think Shadow Word tends to be better in the lane, like level 1, maybe even Fatal Bonds. But I don't mind the early upheaval, especially depending on your matchup. If you have some like Ursa Monkey King versus, you know, some melee offlaner, then I do think upheaval is pretty strong. And maybe you could take it level 1, but definitely like level 2 onwards, I'm, super open to early levels in upheaval. Stats is better than even 1 point in Chilling Touch. I would have to look into that more. I think like 1 point is not bad because you get some bonus damage and a little bit of slow, and especially like you can use it to secure range creeps. I'm kind of okay with you getting like the stats too, though, especially if you have like combos, maybe Cold Feet or Ice Vortex. Who else? C tier. I think some of these are like Spirit Breaker and Bounty work more at high level games. You'll see them played as 5s a bit more, and maybe they go up to like B, maybe even A tier. But in pubs, it's really hard. They're not strong laners. Same with like Clinks. You open yourself up to like a really weak draft when you pick like Bounty 5 and Clinks 5, and your team doesn't know how to adjust to it. I think Lion has been making a comeback, and maybe he should go higher, but I still have not been terribly impressed with Lion in my pubs, and I know a lot of pub Lions just go for like Aghanims, and I think that build still sucks. So if you play Lion like that, he's definitely down here, but he's slowly been getting buffed. I think he's starting to make a comeback. To me, it's going to take more, but he's actually seeing like decent amount of pro play, so maybe I'm just underestimating him. Maybe he should be higher. Shadow Shaman's down here. I get a lot of questions about Shadow Shaman. He is just short ranged, and his disables, especially Shackle, you need to stand there and channel, right? So I mean, just look at all these top heroes that I have above him and imagine trying to lane against them. It's just miserable. You just get like whittled down too much, or one of your biggest spells is just super easily countered. So to me, Shadow Shaman's down here. His biggest benefit in the pub scene is that your ultimate does a lot of tower pressure, objective pressure, but now there's other heroes who can do that, kind of like Techies and Pugna that are really strong, so why not use their much lower cooldown abilities rather than Shadow Shamans? Io, Coddle, I think they go up if you're in the pro scene, I think they move up to like B or A tier. Clockwork, actually Clockwork I give C tier. I don't know, Clockwork maybe goes up too, but I haven't seen very many of these heroes in pubs. I think in the pro scene, especially Io they get a lot better. So maybe they should be higher. For the D tier, I think some of these are just much better 4s. Even they're maybe not the best, depending. So like Hoodwink, Windranger, Tusk, kind of like this right half. Not that this is put in any particular order, but several of these are much better 4s than they are 5s. If you do want to play them as 5, they like work, and they're not the worst 5s you could pick compared to like SF5 and stuff like that. But in terms of like supports, actual supports, there's definitely a big list above them that I'd rather see on my team. And then some of these just need more buffs. I think like Grimstroke, Ogre, Venge, conceptually fine, but in practice, none of them ever seem strong every time I see them. So I think they need buffs before they really go up. Thoughts on Dawnbreaker and Dazzle? Dazzle, I think there's just better saving heroes than him. And then in his lane, I don't know, his lane is like okay depending on the matchups, but he's also weak to dispels in the lane, and if he doesn't have like a good time with his poison touch, his laning stage feels super awkward compared to other supports, especially the saving supports, right? Those are usually the more direct comparisons for Dazzle. In pubs, I think it's better because, you know, the classic don't focus Dazzle, so he sits in the back and he graves people, stuff like that. That's okay. I think his ult is like weird. Especially with Greaves, it was one of his most popular items, but Greaves and Bad Juju don't synergize at all because you Greaves, let's say Greaves is a 40-second cooldown, and you use Bad Juju to bring the cooldown, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the 40 seconds. They need to change that, and it would make Dazzle better. But for now, Dazzle pretty much cannot build Guardian Greaves, and it's one of the strong items, I'd say, right? You don't always have to buy it as a support, but it worked for Dazzle. It's one of his items he does like to get, and he can't right now. So I don't know. He's like okay, but I'd rather have like Oracle on my team. And then Dawnbreaker, I think in pubs is actually better than in the pro scene, because right now her numbers just aren't great, so you don't really see her much in the pro scene at all or high level pubs. But in pub games, you can really make use of her ultimate being a global reposition, so that, as people are not being efficient and everything, you can go push out other lanes, you can do farming, and then ult in. So I think in the pub scene, Dawnbreaker has a bit more benefit. Spiritbreaker C tier. This is for position 5s, and I'm trying to balance pros and pubs. So in the pro scene, I wouldn't mind moving him up to like A, maybe S tier, although I think other heroes are still better than him as a 5. But in the pub scene, I think it's harder because his laning stage is kind of awkward, and people get tilted because you're like Spiritbreaker 5. And if the lane doesn't go well, then it's really awkward because you're starting behind as a Spiritbreaker. I feel like higher level games understand like that flexibility a lot better than the pub scene. So to me, balancing this between pubs and pros, like I'd put him lower down. If you play at a higher MMR, then go for it. I think it's fine. But for like the average Dota 2 player, I think trying to play Spiritbreaker 5 is going to be more difficult than other 5s. Jakiro in pubs can be A tier. Honestly, I have not played Jakiro very much or seen him very much, but his win rate is really high when I look at the pub data. So I'm down for him being further up. I think he does like split push well, which is very common to need in pub games. He's got the stun buff is really nice. Tower damage, he's always had that, but it's, still there, still good. Shard that you get for free, pretty nice. So yeah, I think Jakira's fine. I just haven't been playing him because we played him so much. I've been trying to like do different things, but surprisingly not picked like at all at the pro scene. I'm not fully sure on the reason why, but I think if you come down to the numbers, Jakiro is harder to pull off. He has like expensive spells that can easily be dispelled compared to like some of these cheaper spells that can't be dispelled. So the laning stage, if you want a strong laner, there are more consistent 5s to go for that. And then if you want like, in terms of AoE stuns, he's probably still one of the better heroes you could pick as a support. But a lot of like off laners and mids right now are the ones with stuns, or like Techies stun is good enough, especially if he has a stronger lane than Jakiro. So I don't know. I'm a little surprised Jakiro has been like has such a high pub win rate, but like barely played at pro scene. But I think that's part of it. Yeah, I think Jakiro does fit a lot of pub lineups, especially because he has the stun, right? And that's frequently missing. That's why Jakiro is one of my most played. I think he's just he just has something for every game. Deuce's support is strong. I was gonna try it, but then it got nerfed, and I never went back to it. I really have not seen it very much. If you guys see like a high level pro match or something that they're doing it, let me know. We can take a look. Let me see his win pick rate. I actually don't remember Jakiro's pick rate, but I think it's like pretty. It's not like the best, but I think it's fine, and I think he still has a high win rate. Yeah, he's like, so for Herald through Crusader, Jakiro is 11% pick rate and a 54% win rate, which is pretty insane, honestly. And even going, like, it declines as you go to the right, but even in Immortal, his pick rate is 7.7%, and it's a 50.8% win rate. So, like, the stats are really good for him. I don't strictly know why, besides the fact that I think he's a strong laner and offers a lot, and in pubs, you're just not countered as often. But at the pro scene, especially with the drafting, there's like ways to deal with it. Also, Rubik, super good, and in my opinion, is the number one counter to Jakiro. So that maybe is part of the reason why the second Rubik enters a pub game or a pro match in the draft, it's like, I don't want to play Jakiro anymore. So that could be part of it. What would be good heroes to pick safely as both position 5 and 4? So Techies, Rubik, Pugna, I think all of those would be pretty good. Undying, see some 4 play. It's not the best, but you could make it work. Batrider works as a 4 in the 5. Venomancer is a much better 5 than a 4, but you can kind of make it work if you want. That might just be my bias of loving Venomancer, but personally, I think you can make it work, even if it's not the best. ET, I think, can be a 4 or a 5. Maybe Mirana, 4 or 5 is pretty good too, although I think she's dropped off since she became a universal hero, which means her damage gain is worse stat-wise unless she's buying items that give her stats. But as a support, you don't buy those items. You buy other things. And so I think that's why she's dropped down a little bit. Skywrath can work as a 4 or a 5, though I think he's a better 4. Maybe Enigma if he stays being popular. We'll see. CM, I think CM is much better as a 5, but you can make her work as a 4. Same with Disruptor. I think they're both better 5s, but if you kind of know what you're doing and you really like those heroes, you can play them as 4. Did you mention Snapfire? She's here. I think she's fine. I think she's a little better as a core right now because she became a universal hero. Very similar to Mirana, where I think Snapfire being able to buy items makes her stronger, and as a support, you don't buy those types of items. But having said that, I think her base abilities are generally more useful than Mirana's base abilities as a support who is not scaling with universal stats. So I would put Snapfire like slightly higher than Mirana. Maybe she could be A tier too. Thanks, YouTube. Thanks for watching. I will link all the relevant video guides that I have for some of these heroes. Check them out if you want more insight on them. But other than that, I got nothing. Thanks. Bye. Oh, join the Twitch stream if you want to be and stuff like this. Wow. Okay, now bye.